Said to lurk deep within the murky waters of Scotland's most voluminous freshwater loch, the Loch Ness Monster is perhaps the most famous and heavily debated cryptozoological creature of all time. But could there really be a large, unidentified creature residing in the waters of the loch? And if so, what could it be and how did it get there? Situated along the Great Glen Fault, Loch Ness is not the largest or even the deepest loch in Scotland, but it does contain the most amount of water, so much, in fact, that it contains almost double the amount of water of all the lakes in England and Wales combined. The perfect place, then, it would seem, for a large aquatic creature to hide. Loch Ness is connected to the ocean at both ends by the Caledonian Canal, which runs to the sea at Inverness to the northeast and at Fort William to the southwest. There is also the River Ness, which flows mostly parallel to the canal at the northeast end. While the canal does pass through a number of other lochs along the Great Glen Fault, it is blocked at various points by an extensive series of lochs, meaning that it would be difficult for anything particularly large to actually make it to or from Loch Ness via these waterways, especially without being seen. So with that in mind, what could Nessie actually be? Option 1. A Plesiosaur. The quintessential depiction of the Loch Ness Monster is a large reptile-like animal with a long neck and small head, which had led to the idea that the creature is some sort of holdover from prehistory, such as a plesiosaur. This popular model of a monster found outside the Loch Ness Monster Exhibition Centre in Drumnadrochit is a prime example. There are, however, a couple of problems with the plesiosaur theory. The first is that plesiosaurs breathed air. This meant that, like today's whales and dolphins, these creatures needed to come to the surface on a regular basis to breathe, assuming that in order for a creature like this to still survive in Loch Ness in the present day, there would need to be a viable population of them. We would expect to see a veritable forest of long necks protruding from the water on a regular basis. The fact that we don't see this, coupled with the fact that there wouldn't be enough food in the loch to support such a population of large predators anyway, would seem to suggest that we may have to look elsewhere for the identity of the Loch Ness Monster. There's also the not so insignificant fact that plesiosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago. Option 2. A giant eel. The idea that at least some Loch Ness Monster sightings can be attributed to giant eels has been around for some time, but it wasn't until scientists from New Zealand conducted a major new DNA study of the loch in 2019 that the idea gained renewed traction. For the research, scientists collected around 250 samples of water from around the loch and then conducted a DNA analysis to identify which animal species happened to be living there. The findings seem to heavily imply that a giant eel, possibly up to and exceeding a metre in length, could account for sightings of a large unidentified creature in the loch. But while giant eels can certainly explain some reports of the monster, they are unlikely to account for every sighting. Option 3. Mistaken identity. These days, people come from all over the world for an opportunity to glance out over the waters of the loch in the hope of catching a glimpse of the monster. Inevitably, though, this means that people are going to see things that definitely aren't the Loch Ness Monster and then interpret them as something mysterious. Some of the most common examples of mistaken identity include boat wakes, debris, tree branches, and other similar things. There are also native animals that can sometimes be mistaken for the monster, Birds floating on the surface, for example, can look like a head protruding from the water, while deer can also sometimes be seen swimming across. Otters have often been seen in the area, especially in the canal, and these can sometimes create disturbances in the water. In short, it is very easy for something mundane in the loch to be mistaken for something extraordinary. Option 4. Visiting wildlife. Could some form of visiting marine animal account for sightings of the Loch Ness Monster? Earlier, I mentioned that Loch Ness is connected to the sea by both the River Ness and the Caledonian Canal, the latter of which being blocked by a series of lochs. So while a route from the ocean to the loch does exist, actually navigating it would be very difficult, especially for a large animal. Difficult, but not impossible. So if the Loch Ness Monster did happen to be an animal from the ocean, what type of creature could it be? Seals are certainly plentiful along Scotland's coastline, and there have been cases of individual seals being sighted in the loch, but their presence there is likely very rare, and not something that would account for frequent sightings over many decades. Perhaps a more viable candidate would be a Greenland shark. In the Season 5 finale of the TV series River Monsters, presenter Jeremy Wade outlined a case for a Greenland shark being the origin of the Loch Ness Monster legend. Greenland sharks are certainly large enough. Growing up to 24 feet in length and weighing as much as 3,000 pounds, these huge creatures can live for up to 500 years. They are also native to the North Sea, so it is at least plausible that one of them could have made it into Loch Ness. In conclusion, then, it is perhaps reasonable to assume that sightings of the Loch Ness Monster over the years could be attributed to a whole range of different animals and phenomena, up to and including a large unidentified creature that is either new to science or that nobody would have ever expected to find there. In truth, though, there may never be a definitive, concrete explanation for the Loch Ness Monster mystery. And perhaps that's for the best. One thing's for sure, no matter what explanations people come up with, no matter how many theories are debunked, it's not going to stop the next person who is visiting the loch from glancing out over the surface of its murky waters, hoping to catch a glimpse of something, anything, that resembles a head or neck vanishing quickly into the depths. So what do you think best explains the Loch Ness Monster mystery? Let us know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell icon to be notified when we upload new videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.